this episode of 2D, where we have two dermatologists discussing a topic of interest to you, we have Dr. Karthik Raja, consultant dermatologist and somebody who's very keen on exploring principles of regenerative and functional medicine as it applies to dermatology. Thank you for joining me here.
Thank you for inviting me, ma'am. Thank you.
I want to ask you a very basic question. How did night shifts happen? Or we have a lot of people doing night shift work these days. But is it a recent phenomenon?
No, ma'am, not at all. When people started to live together as a tribe, at that point of itself, the night shift started. Because
How long ago are we talking about?
Paleolithic age.
Okay.
When people were hunting and gathering, that hunting gathering itself is a tribe event. It is not an isolated event.
Right.
Before that, humans may be scattered around living alone, but when they start to live together, some people will go hunt and bring food, and then people will stay together, and somebody has to watch in the night. So that is when the night watchers came, and the genes are still there.
So the night watchers is true beyond Game of Thrones.
Yes, it is true beyond Game of
Tell us
Thrones.
more.
Okay, what has happened? What should have happened is there will be some people who always been the night watchers, and their descendants will be the night watchers, and others will go hunt, gather, and come back, and they will be sleeping in the daytime, and they'll have the same food that is gathered by those hunters, and they will keep watch in the night so that the tribe can sleep peacefully in the night. So that is where the night shift has started, and we still have the genes. Whoever of those night watchers, we are still there.
Is this like an epigenetic change? So you had the gene,
Yes.
and then because of epigenetic switches,
Yes.
this got switched on.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about this transgenerational, when you said night watchers were there and then we inherited and some of us still have that rhythm or clock?
It is not only in that. Everything has such transgenerational shifts. See, if you see, most of the Indians are obese. That is because of the famine.
Yeah.
So what happened during the famine is all those six-packs people died
Okay.
because there is no food.
Okay.
Those who had fat survived.
Okay.
And we are the people who are
Descendants
descendants
from them.
of those fat people. So we have the tendency to store fat.
Okay.
That is how we escaped.
Okay.
So this is one of the transgenerational shift that we are seeing here.
Right.
So this is very recent. So we can relate to this to the night watches also.
So somebody who was able to get whatever source of energy converted into storage in the
form.
fat, those are the people who escaped the famine.
Yes.
And because that was a switch that turned on when there was no food.
Yes.
Now when there is abundant food, the switch is still turned on.
It may turn off at some point of time, but it is not in the near future.
Not happening in our time.
Not in our time. And so we have to take care of our food intakes, especially Indians.
Okay.
Because there is no six-pack genes left. All those things have died. So we
Categorically dead.
Categorically dead.
Okay. What about this applying to night shift workers today? Now we do not know where we started out. We could have been hunter gatherers, or we could have been night watchers, but
Yes.
all of us now have to work
Yes.
because of the discovery of artificial light. So blame
Yes.
it on Edison for this.
Not only Edison, before that also we had a fire, we had candles, we had lanterns.
Of course.
So all those things were there before Edison. He was working with candle. So all those extra light sources apart from sun.
Yes.
So that itself will play a role.
Talking about night shift workers, can you tell us a little bit more about the people who go in at the same time and then people who rotate shifts, typically like doctors and nurses?
See, sleep can happen in two different ways. Number one is, it is night, the body, there is no light, the body makes its melatonin and let you sleep. Now it is the time to sleep, so you can sleep. That is kind of one sleep. The other one is, you tirelessly work, you get tired, you doze off irrespective of whether light is there.
You're exhausted.
You're exhausted. So there is two different types of sleeps. What we can do for this rotational shift people is, they'll always be exhausted and they'll sleep.
Yeah.
Because they cannot set in a clock. In 10 days, you cannot change the time zone for them. But for those who are continuously working in US shift, what we can do is, actually we can switch their clock to the time zone, the time zone that they're working for.
How long will this shift usually take? If you start seriously and you put in the effort and put in the work, how long will this shift take?
It is basically like jet lag. Within 3-4 days, if you continuously do, it will set in. But the problem is 10 days shift, if you are rotating again and again and again, it cannot set in and it will be very confused. If you say, it can start to initiate in 3 to 4 days.
4 to 6 weeks is a good time for us to set things in.
4 to 6 weeks, it will be completely set.
Acclimatized.
Completely acclimatized. But the most important component is they have to set up their bedroom.
Tell us 1, 2, 3, 4 steps.
There should not be any light sensed by the skin. That is the most important part.
Okay.
There can be occasional flickering of light like stars. Like small dots of light seeping in is not a big deal, but it should not be bright. It should have complete closure, and sound level should also be low.
Okay.
Mimic night.
Okay.
If you open your eyes, you should not be able to see light.
Okay.
It is not just applying a patch in the eyes and sleeping, because skin is also sensing light.
Yes.
So it has to be completely dark.
Okay.
So that body has to think it as night.
All right.
Obviously, mimicking day is easy. When they wake up, everywhere there is light, they can sense it as day. But night, it has to be like completely dark.
What about temperature? Especially if you're trying to train your body to this shift rhythm.
Yes.
What about the temperature?
Ideally, when you're awake, 26 degrees Celsius, and when you want to sleep, 22 to 24 is ideal. The temperature should not be too cold. It should be comfortable. They should not have any disturbance.
Okay.
The idea is to make them not disturbed. So the 24 is the ideal temperature that I will prefer, but everybody have their own tweak.
Thermostat.
Thermostat.
I am for 28. Neonatalized. NICU is 28, therefore 28 for skin. That's my thermostat.
Ma'am, 28 for skin, it will be little warmer, but it will be correctly humidifying also.
Yes.
26 is little less humidifying. 24
Yes.
is little less humidifying. So you will need a moisturizer.
Yes.
Of course, you're a dermatologist.
So we
Registering it
start
here.
from there.
But anyway, 28 is an ideal temperature, but it is not possible for people to
Tropical country, for
we
sure.
want little colder.
Now we had questions around whether we sleep better when we are warm or we sleep better when you're cold. I think science is split both ways in terms of some say warm up before you go to sleep, some say keep it very cold so you can sleep deeper, like a hibernation kind of a thought process, with completely all the signals
Yes, ma'am.
come down. And coming back here, you spoke about the light, you spoke about the temperature. What else do we need?
We have heard about bath salts, relaxing bath salts. It is basically based upon magnesium. So vitamin D is for the day and magnesium is for the night.
Yeah.
So magnesium will make you relaxed. It will induce sleep also to a certain extent if people are deficient of magnesium.
Right.
The first time when I took magnesium at 11 a.m. in the morning before bathing, I was dozed off in the work.
Okay.
I couldn't keep my eyes open.
Okay.
That is when you have so much of deficiency of magnesium. But otherwise, when you take it, it will have a nice relaxing feeling. When you sleep, it will be a peaceful sleep. When you wake up, it will be awake.
Just because we spoke about vitamin D and sun, and because we're also people that ask people to use sunscreens, so can we quickly touch upon this? I mean, everybody knows what I think. It's
Okay.
I've published it enough. So
Okay, I will tell the thing is sunscreen is very, very important. You want a solar panel to produce 100% energy. You just expose 10% of the solar panel and expect it to work for the 100%, it will get burnt.
right.
We are trying to expect the face and hand to produce vitamin D
For the entire
through
body.
entire day. And expose it to light entire day, it is going to get burnt. You want vitamin D, you can get it in sun, but you have to get exposed between 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That is the ideal time, not the early morning, not in the early evening. That time, if you expose to sunlight for 20 minutes in the front, 20 minutes in the back, I have seen people improving vitamin D from 10 to 80 just by doing this every day. It can happen, but it is not feasible in our scenario, so it takes up.
So I have a take on the following, on the way of sun exposure. So what happens is, as you keep exposing to the sun, the melanin also builds up. Somebody who's very efficient at increasing their vitamin levels in the early phase, by the end of maybe about 10 days of exposure, has a lot more melanin, after which your production stops. So then what happens is our vitamin D goes down, but what does not go down is the pigmentation we acquire.
Yes.
And also, if somebody is fairly dark skinned, their initial ability to make vitamin D also gets impaired, but their ability to get pigmentation
is more.
increases. I say, if at all, if you feel you have to expose, definitely not the face,
Not the
because
face.
it's a lot of homework to do after to get back
Yes.
get the tan out or the pigmentation out. Coming back to the other things that night shift workers need to do. Is there anything else? You spoke about two kinds of shifts. One
Yes.
was when you had a rotational shift, and the
shift.
other one was when you had a stable shift.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us about whether it is even possible to retrain our circadian rhythm? No other choice. Have to work in the night, have to work at a different country's shift.
Yes.
So if there is no other choice, what is the thing that we can proactively do to overcome this exposome?
Continuous shift people can easily do that because they have the luxury. Obviously, they are working in night shift because they are making a little bit more money. Otherwise, no.
No judgment here.
Otherwise,
No judgment here.
continuously night shift if they're working, they have to make use of that money to make themselves healthy. Otherwise,
We'll,
there is no point in making that money.
understood. Now this is taken. Okay.
So for that, they have to spend a little bit on making their bedroom dark. That is one thing that no compromise on that.
Okay.
They have to make completely dark. If they are not able to paint, at least they have to use some black screens, including the windows. Block those small holes using those fillers. There are some material available to fill up. Make sure it is completely dark.
Yeah, and even the TV, sometimes they leave the flickering lights on. That is also not acceptable. Switch it off completely.
Switch it off as much as possible, because even if you switch off everything, there is going to be some seepage inside. So you don't initiate some lights, not even the lights, not even your phone, everything. And before sleeping, sleep mode. The black and white mimics little bit of lesser light. So the phone is again a major distractor.
Okay.
Or any screen for that time. So at least 2 hours before you go to sleep, make that into black and white. Night mode is available. You put that in black and white. Not night mode, there is sleep mode.
Okay.
If you put in black and white, the stimulus is lesser.
Right.
So that is another thing you can do, just your time zone. So basically you have to mimic that you're in Australia or you are in US or wherever. That time zone you have to switch it. Do not go out in daytime.
This is going to be difficult to do. The entire family is up in the daytime and everybody is disturbing this person. So it's going to be very challenging.
No, it is challenging, but again, this is the job. This is health for the longer duration. 1 or 2 days, if you are doing it, it is fine. 1 or 2 days, somebody is coming and disturbing. That
Weekends
is
okay.
Weekends is okay, because anyways in weekend you are going to roam around even in night, in normal of our life also. Same time zone also, they are going to work around in the night, so that's okay. Second show movie 1 day, not a big deal.
Okay.
So it's okay, fine. But do not make that as a routine. I'm talking about routine. Somebody sometime disturbing is okay. But as a routine, make sure everything is dark as much as possible when you want to sleep. That 6 hours of dark time is very, very, very important. Whether you sleep or not, doesn't matter, but make sure you're in the dark so that the melatonin comes in, there is some restfulness, BP drops, heart rate drops, all those things happen there. And when you wake up, see light, because that is going to give you the stimulus that it is day.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whatever time it is, just see light for some time. Not the screens, not necessarily, but just go to the lighted area. Don't stay in the same area.
In a tropical country, just get out of the bedroom and go across to the living area.
Living area
where you have natural light.
Natural light. But if their waking up time is itself is night, when everyone else is sleeping, just make sure you have your own light.
Yeah.
You make the room to a different room, because we have darkened down this one, so we have to go to a different room where it is little bit of light is
Better
there.
lighting. Okay.
And that is the time when you can have your morning coffee.
Because you're now in the US zone.
That is your morning. You have to live in that way. That is your morning, that you can have your own coffee, because again, coffee is one another thing that made people work 24/7.
Yeah, tell us more about how they came to be a community of night watchers, or how they came to be a community where people continued working.
Yeah, that happened. See, stimulants were there always. Coffee is one another stimulant, apart from Edison and whoever invented fire. We had again coffee, stimulant. That is one thing that is proven to be effective throughout ages. People have been drinking coffee or eating the coffee beans or having something in the mouth to make them active to work throughout the night. So those things also played a major role when they want to be awake at night. When it hit the mainstream during the Industrial Revolution, then only all these night duties started.
And you also had smoking and tobacco in the mix.
Yeah, smoking, keeping tobacco in the mouth or smoking, all those things came into it. Betel nut, everything. Everywhere, every culture has their own way to figure out. Some leaf.
Some leaf.
Or seed, basically. They figured out after hunting and gathering, of course, gatherers are trying to try
always
one or the other.
And check. Yeah.
So they might have figured out those things. That is how the night watchers non-night watchers are able to stay awake in the night.
Okay, the night watchers inherently had the genetic some switching on to stay awake, and those who could not do that, then
they had to rely on the stimulants.
Okay, now we know that, here is how we set ourselves up to cope with our night shift. How do we eat?
When you wake up, that is going to be your breakfast.
Okay.
Before sleep, just at least 2 to 3 hours before sleep, stop eating.
Right.
What you are supposed to do in the regular time zone, do it in the switched time zone.
Understood.
That is for the people who have stable shift. Okay, that is there. And people who have rotational shift, that becomes tricky, because they cannot train their circadian rhythm to be in the opposite direction. Morning 8 a.m. their cortisol is going to come up. They are going to be in the normal pattern always. Because every 10 days it is going to shift.
Right, right.
12 to 8, 8 to 12, and then again 12 to 12, night shift is also going to be there. So we should not expect them to switch the circadian rhythm. It should not happen. So they have to be awake at night, but do not eat too much at night.
What can I eat? Maybe like 4 or 5 items that I think, or 4 or 5 principles for eating healthy when I'm staying in this rotational shift, or if I have not trained myself to go into a different time zone.
Number one, carbohydrate should be had in the beginning of shift, not in the end.
Right.
Okay, so the morning, the night shift, starting of night shift, or starting of your shift.
Starting of your day.
Starting of your shift is the starting of your day.
Right.
So carbohydrate should be there in that food only, as much as possible, reduce in the last one. Last one should be protein. Protein is required for the repair. So when they sleep, the repair process should happen.
Right.
So protein should be the last meal. Carbohydrate, if at all they're taking, I don't prefer eating carbohydrates, at least for the patients. At least for the, as by principle, I don't prefer taking carbohydrates. But anyway, if you're taking carbohydrates, the carbohydrate should be in the early. Again, carbohydrate is another stimulant.
Okay.
It is going to make your heart pump faster.
Sugar is another stimulant.
Yeah, carbohydrates basically. So it is again it is going to bring in insulin. Insulin is an inotrope. Insulin is going to, it is as good as atropine and dopamine by pumping heart faster. So make that in the morning because you are getting stimulated. You want to get stimulated. Morning in the sense start of the shift. That is considered as the morning.
Eat big before you get to work.
Get to work. Then you burn away all those things. By the fairly in the middle of the day, reduce little lesser quantity. Like if you want to put it in percentage, 50, 30, 20, or you can put 40, 40, 20. But the last should be 20 or 25.
And you also spoke about where people can just have 2 meals.
Yes, that is again, I will say in 2 different ways. Number one is intermittent fasting or time restricted eating.
Time restricted eating, yes.
Or the other thing I will call that is intermittent starvation. If you are in carb based metabolism, if you don't eat, you are basically starving. If you don't eat, and especially if you work, you are starving yourself. So I will prefer, if you want to have intermittent starvation, that is if you are in carb based metabolism and if you don't want to have this 3 meals a day, I will prefer you to eat 8 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Okay.
Or 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Have that in the morning window rather than having from 12 to 8, because morning you're going to work. When you're working, the cortisol is going to be there. It is going to require glucose to produce energy, because insulin is also there. You are not eating, it is going to break down your protein to get glucose.
Right.
But when you're sleeping, it is okay. It is not going to take away that much of glucose. It'll be there in the mode to repair. So it is not going to break the protein for energy. So that way it is better if you are doing carb based fasting.
Okay.
But if you are in ketosis, if you are keto adapted, especially when you are in ketosis, nutritional ketosis for 6 weeks or more, you will be keto adapted, which means body can produce energy whenever it is required from fat.
So you eat when you're hungry?
Not necessarily. You can eat when you get.
Okay.
That is the true hunter-gatherer.
Okay.
So they can eat whenever they get food.
They can only eat whenever they get food. Yeah.
So similarly, if you are in properly keto adapted phase, you can eat when you have protein or food. If you don't eat also, it is fine, because body is going to take continuous energy from the fat.
Right.
We have abundant storage anyway. And that will be a state, it will be protecting muscle also. So that is a very good state to live in. Again, 3 meals, 2 meals and 1 meal yogi.
On a day-to-day basis where people are also having to do so many other things.
And the other thing I can tell about is, there has been never a time in human evolution that such diet abundance of food is there. It is always fasting and feasting. There will always be some amount of food scarcity was there. But currently it is not at all there. And the engineered foods, which is engineered to make you want more, which is engineered to become addictive, that is there more. So eating less has become much more imperative than ever. Because say 30 years before also, getting food all the time is not that easy for everyone.
Yeah.
Now it is easy for everyone.
Yeah, we went out to restaurants if we were traveling.
Yes.
Only if we were traveling and they couldn't cook at home or we couldn't have food at home. That was the only time we went and had food outside.
Yes.
Or weddings where we had biryani when somebody got married. You had to wait for biryani, or you had to wait for someone to get married to get biryani.
So it is a tendency for people to work in the night shift to eat 3 meals in the day and also 3 meals in the night.
Yeah, because we're speaking about all-cause mortality. That is the risk of premature death
Yes.
from whatever cause there is, be it cardiovascular, most of it cardiovascular, or even it be malignancies and stuff, is higher for people who are in the night shifts. This is emerging information. We are seeing early studies coming in because night shift as such has become a normalized phenomenon for maybe the last 3 decades consistently, especially post-COVID, last 5 years at least. So we are seeing this early data. We don't know how much of it is actually Indian data or how much of it is really applicable to us. But considering that we know that it's generally unhealthy, what is the way for a long-term adaptation? We spoke about diet, we spoke about sleep. What is the way for long-term adaptation?
I think about 2 different ways why this night shift people are getting mortality is increased. Number one is because the cortisol rhythm is disturbed.
Right.
So when there is cortisol, there is inflammation. Inflammation is going to be there in the vessel wall. Vessel wall is going to get inflamed. Then the plaque is going to set in. So reducing inflammation is going to be key. Number one. Number two, abundance of food again. 3 times in the day, 3 times in the night. If they are bored, there is nothing else to do in the night, especially. In the daytime also, they have something to do. In the night, if they are bored, they can't do anything else apart from eating.
Yeah, we face that work from home is always kitchen raids.
Yes. So that thing they have to control. Consciously have to make a choice not to buy food and keep it in fridge. Fridge is to store uncooked food.
Okay.
You keep it that way, it will be better for people not to eat at night.
Yeah.
Anything.
Fridge is not for cooked food. That's like that's like the punch dialogue of this podcast.
Because obviously when you are there at night, if you take an effort to cook, that is also is fine. But if there is ready-made food available in the fridge, obviously you're going to scoop in.
Yeah.
There is no other. It is addictive.
Yeah.
De-addiction is not that easy because it is a socially acceptable addiction.
Yeah.
If you smoke, people will, now actually it is prohibited to smoke in public.
Yeah.
Alcohol also you need to have a setting.
Yeah.
You will be inebriated.
Yeah.
But eating sugar, nobody is going to know.
Yeah.
Apart from the pan size is going to change.
Right. Non-policed or an addiction that's not looked down upon. But I guess it's changing. Huh? So many of us are trying to move away from sugar, move away from more food. I think this is a good way that we are trying to go back to a place where we are thinking about exposure in a long-term health way. Considering you have amongst your clientele a lot of people from the IT industry who work night shifts, what common problems do you see and what simple solves can we share?
So number one is hair fall because the sleep is not there. Cortisol is there, body is not going to divert energy for hair growth.
Yeah.
It is going to use up for all the other energy. So
we are least priority these days.
Hair is. Again, sleep is the major deterrent and that is why they are getting tired eyes.
Yeah.
It is not just tired eyes, they are basically tired.
Yeah.
People have tired eyes for various reasons, but they are tired.
Yeah.
So that is another thing. And all these, what we were talking about, the insulin resistance and everything, will start to show in the skin 5 to 10 years before it shows in the blood.
Right.
So if they are bothered about something, they should not just apply creams and leave it up. They have to look inside also. Even the blood may be normal, but the skin is not normal. We have to look at it.
So insulin resistance coming way ahead in terms of skin issues, acne, hair fall, skin pigmentation, well recognized, right?
Yes. So all these things, it will start to show in the skin. We need to recognize and we need to treat, not just with the creams. We have to go beyond the skin. Yeah, holistically, we have to address all those things.
That's the beauty of exposome science because many things that we have inherited, there is very little power for us to do anything. But when it comes to identifying these factors, it feels like we have a lot of power to go do something.
Yes. Even hemoglobin, low hemoglobin, we start to see in eyes.
Right.
So from there, we can start to see a lot of things. Even thyroid also start to see in the lateral metrosis, all those things we'll start to see. Again, people who are in night shift, they are having thyroid disturbance also. And thyroid is the master hormone which regulates all the other hormones. So when that disturbance sets in play, they will have every other issue.
Yeah.
So we need to make them understand the importance of sleep in a dark room, even if they are not in shift, and not eat too much. Right. Not eat too much is not too many times. Have to restrict. Time restricted eating will help a lot.
Time restricted feeding is a great concept.
It's a great concept, especially for people who are in night shift.
Right.
Because that is going to be the difficult component. And the people who are around them should support them. They should not ask them 12 o'clock biryani, evening 4 o'clock snacks, while they're sleeping, waking them up and feeding them and then making them sleep. Obviously, they're going to wake up at night and then again going to eat.
Yeah.
So when they are sleeping, let them sleep. It is their night. It is not 12 o'clock you have to feed them, leave them.
That is very important advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Karthik, for
Thank you,
joining
ma'am.
me here. We had a most delightful conversation talking about how our current day's life and style is actually influenced by what we were doing when we were hunter-gatherers or night watchers. Amazing topic, lots of new research coming in to shed more light on this exposome. If you have questions, put them down in the comments below and we will discuss. I'll see you soon and you take care.